I just said mooses. Guys, how many times will I say mooses by accident in this video? But hello and meowdy everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Saphwyn, the silly Nico vtuber, and I react to things that I find cool on this channel. And you know what that means? We are reacting to why moose are the greatest threat to national security by Casual Geographic today. Which means let's learn about some tank on legs, some little, they're not little. I don't know why I just called them little. We're learning about moose today. We're learning about the big boys, the big old boys out there in the forest. As always, the original video is linked down in the description. And if you want anime reactions, we have a brand new channel, so go over there, react. I'm reacting to 3 animes right now over there, so I suggest you check it out. It is also linked down below, and let's dive into the video. Oh, and for those of you who do not know already, these are the animal of my people, aka I am Canadian, and we are famous for the moose, so I'm excited to dive in and learn more about them.
Are one of those animals. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that you could look at this picture 900 times and a 901st will...
Bro, they're so tall, and for what reason? They're literal towers on 4 legs.
Still put bricks in your pants. Also, fun fact, this picture's probably the reason you even know I exist. One of the first animal videos I ever made was dedicated to how much of a middle finger this was to my peace of mind. What was true back then is still very much true today. At up to 1,700 pounds and 7 feet tall.
Look at him.
At the shoulders, the moose is always going to be one of those animals
Bro, if you wanted to just go total your car, like you could. Isn't that like a scary thought? You could just run into him on the highway and your car is totaled.
Forgot to put a size cap on.
And he may or may not live that. He'd probably live that too, as well, depending on the speed. Just because, like, a moose is a tank.
Moose are part of the Capreolinae deer family. Only problem is this roy deer is closer in size to an elephant than to a full-grown Bambi. And because you probably think I'm lying, the largest Alaskan moose ever caught was 1,808 pounds and 10 feet tall if you count.
10 feet tall! Bruh. 10 feet. This thing is 10 feet tall.
The antlers. But, like, why wouldn't you? Moose are broken in many ways, but the most obvious is how god big they are.
They're massive.
I think I better start back. I can't back up that fast, can I?
Oh, you're backing up that fast.
The problem with being built like a truck with antlers is that very few things in nature have the ability or the audacity to ever try to check you. And while moose calves are obviously vulnerable to predators, there just aren't enough things in the world that are bold enough, desperate enough, or stupid enough to want smoke with a full-grown bull moose. And while wolves might hunt them, even a wolf pack will hesitate to test a healthy male moose's ability to turn you into past tense. And
I feel like the only way, not the only way, a successful wolf pack will still take down a moose. It'll just take a lot longer. But I feel like for like a 100% success, you need to be taking on like an injured or like a deceased moose or something. Because like taking on an adult moose, especially if you don't have a full wolf pack and like your wolf pack is lacking members, probably like that just sounds dangerous to the wolf pack.
As solitary hunters that occasionally get their pushed in by smaller animals like the guanaco, most cougars won't even bother with a full-grown moose.
I don't blame them.
In some places, grizzly bears have been known to murk adult moose, but when the only thing in your area code that has even a chance of humbling you is literally one of the largest predators on the planet, that is a problem. And if you're 10 feet...
I feel like a polar bear and a grizzly bear would be able to murk a moose by itself. The cougar and like the lynx and the other cats, I feel like depending on the size of the moose, they definitely can murk them, but a full size a bull, like a moose bull, I feel like that's dangerous with the antlers. A female, on the other hand, they could probably take because no antlers, but the antlers pose like the biggest threat of the mooses. I just said mooses. Guys, how many times will I say mooses by accident in this video? But the antlers pose like the biggest security threat to any predator trying to attack the animal.
Feet tall, pushing 2,000 pounds, wearing tree branches for a hat. A bear isn't gonna try you unless it's its last possible option.
Yeah.
Which is why one of the biggest threats to a healthy, full-grown, aggressive bull moose is an even bigger aggressive bull moose.
And
that's because of what I can only describe as a dick move from nature. The same antlers that help it get laid are often what gets it laid to rest. Sometimes fighting males will get their antlers locked together, and that's basically a death sentence. Those 2 moose that are stuck together and can't break free will either starve to death.
That's so sad. Imagine being this big, ferocious, like beautiful, majestic animal and you die because you're interlocked with another bull from fighting. That's sad.
Death, die of exhaustion, or a lucky bear will find them and take the 2 for 1. Exhibit A, these are 2 male moose that got locked together and ended up freezing in a lake. And speaking of lakes, moose can swim. Because of course they can. I don't know who told them the moose somehow figured out there's a good amount of food in lakes, so they'll dive up to 20 feet down to feed on the aquatic plants and vegetation.
Well, they love bogs and swampy areas, so that kind of makes sense that they would be able to swim, yeah?
There's better swimmers than me. It's really not uncommon to see a moose swimming in an inlet connected to the sea or...
Nah! Nah. Did I watch that
bottom.
right?
As better swimmers than me, it's really not uncommon to see a moose
Oh, he
swimming in
kinda
an
fell,
inlet connected
okay.
to the sea or phelpsing between islands as they search for food. And at this point, you probably know exactly what direction this video is about to go.
Wait, I thought he fell. That was an intentional cliff diving boost? Oh.
Because this right here is how this ends up happening. Because the moose is basically defenseless in the water, and because orcas always choose violence, the killer whale is the only known marine predator of the moose. To be fair, Greenland sharks have been found with moose remains in their
That's crazy. I wonder, do you think the orca enjoys moose?
stomach, but for my mental health, we're gonna assume the moose are already dead. But the truly messed up part is the only reason the moose even put themselves in this position is because they were looking for food. It's like finding a shortcut to Stop and Shop and then getting clapped in the car at a red light on the way there. And since orcas don't see humans as a reliable food source, at least once in the history of mankind, some guy lived through this and probably never slept well ever again. Also, his therapist drives a Bentley. And that's basically
Imagine being the guy to discover this. Crazy.
Snowplow. An adult moose can sprint through 6 feet of snow at about 15 miles per hour. Those numbers might not mean much to you, but I can personally guarantee you this video will. Now ask yourself what's scarier, this moose running through snow or what in the possible it could be running from. And then there's this. I don't even really know how to describe
They
this.
just seem
Two options, either the
majestical.
water's shallow or that's Jesus Christ in moose form. The Messiah, if you will. For an animal that's dead-ass big enough and tall enough to have its own Wi-Fi, moose can sprint at top speeds of 35 miles per hour. Usain Bolt at his best maxed out at just under 28 miles, meaning not even he could run from the smoke. Now there's probably 2 reasons why you've never seen a moose run at top speed. Well, number 1, when you're built like a tree with legs, there isn't a whole lot in the world you need to run from. And number 2, anyone that manages to motivate a several 100-pound moose into breaking an Olympic record probably isn't going to be alive to talk about it. In a country with bears, cougars, and Florida, the most dangerous animal of all is a 10-foot vegan with antlers. But it's not really their fault.
I'm wondering, like, do you think moose know that they are the top F in the woods when they're just way out there in the wild, and that's why they just be taking their time everywhere they go and they don't run often because they know that they are the top shoot in the freaking woods?
Moose are deer, and as a rule, deer are just menaces to society. In America, deer cause about 1 million car accidents a year and about $1 billion worth of damage to add on top of it. And the moose is by far the worst deer to hit. On a scale from 1 to absolutely your bunkmates would whine seeing if this antler Grim Reaper is ever on the road with you. They say you should never swerve to avoid hitting an animal 95% of the time because you can lose control of your vehicle and end up hitting something way worse. That 5% is reserved for when this is on the road, because if your choices are hitting a moose or swerving, then your next choices are opened or closed casket.
The nice thing is, though, the majority of the time when you're going to see a moose on the road is like at dawn, at like really early dawn. And when it's dawn, there's not like a lot of cars on the road. Depends on where you live, but like where a moose is, there's not normally a lot of cars on the road. Like I said, it is dependent on where you live. So that is the nice thing driving at dawn, is if you did have to swerve to not hit the moose, there's normally like area to do that so safely and not like dangerously. Can't speak. It depends on where you live. I live in an area that's heavy with moose, and like I said, it's not that popular when it's dawn. Dusk, on the other hand, a little bit more dangerous, a little bit more popular. But the most moose sighting here are always at like dawn. Not saying that this is everywhere, just where I live.
And because moose are so disrespectfully tall, hitting a moose often means taking out its legs. The bigger you are, the harder you fall. Only problem is moose are so goddamn big that they can often fall through your windshield and put you on a headline. The worst part is because they're so tall, their eyes don't reflect in your headlights the way they would for a normal sized deer. That combined with their blatant disregard for anyone else's life means in moose country,
see, like example like this, like you're not swerving anywhere, right? You didn't even see the moose until it was probably too late.
Go from a person to a pack faster than you can brake.
Oh, poor
According
thing.
to the internet,
That's
if
so
you're about to
sad.
hit a moose, the best advice is to slow down, don't swerve, and pray to whoever you believe. Just know that if it ever comes down to your car versus a moose, the moose might walk away, but you're not coming out of there without wings and a halo. But of course, moose don't need to be on the road to put you on a stretcher, and this is what makes them worse than the cougars and bears of the world. Predators like mountain lions or grizzlies don't normally see humans as happy meals, so most encounters are either territorial because some dude was either unlucky enough or stupid enough to get too close to their cubs. These guys...
That's one thing I don't understand. Why do people keep getting close to babies? Like, have we not learned our lesson already that the babies equals scary? Especially a predator animal. They will be defending their babies. They act like they're not there. They have an eye on their babies. They know where their babies are if they're a predator animal. Unless, like, they're dead or something. But that's a really odd-off scenario.
These guys are different. Different as in they'll river dance all over your back and they don't really need a reason to do it. As big as they are, they're still a very much valuable prey animal, especially if they're young or sick. And due to the generational trauma of being constantly hunted, moose are naturally wary, which makes them much more likely to attack unprovoked. It gets worse when people forget that they only have one chance at life and attempt to waste it by feeding a moose.
Why?
This often leads not just moose but wild animals in general to associate humans with food, and with association comes expectations. A moose that's constantly been fed by humans is only going to expect food whenever it sees them. In a moose's head, it just makes sense. And failing to meet a moose's expectations is exactly how heaven gains angels. But a moose is at its most volatile when it's in rut. For those of you that don't know what rut is when male animals like camel or deer experience a surge in testosterone, which causes them to become more aggressive and more interested in mating.
So the fighting,
for those of you that already know what rut is, I know how you know. I know how you know. And for moose, this surge in testosterone turns them into 10-foot frat boys on spring break, and sometimes—
Bro, like, Casual's acting like we don't, like, he's not the one that teaches us all this thing. He's like, you know, I know what you know, as if he doesn't teach us this in all his videos, but you know.
they cause just as much damage. Every year in America and Canada, people visit the emergency room because they got too close to a moose, and that moose decided to play hopscotch on their back. Sometimes moose cut out the middleman completely and just pull up to hospitals themselves.
I guess you just— I guess in this scenario, you literally just let the moose do whatever he wants, but then you try to, like, not let him do damage? I don't know. I feel like if you just give him food, you might be able to, like, lure him out, but it's scary regardless.
Because moose are such a roadblock on the highway of life, once upon a time the USSR actually tried to domesticate these deer on steroids and then ride the tankers into battle on a moose cavalry. Results were mixed. Once again, as a prey animal, the moose were naturally terrified of gunfire, and many of them refused to allow themselves to be ridden into battle. Not to mention the moose were much more susceptible to diseases and much harder to feed than horses, so yeah, it was up for that. But there had to have been one kid that joined the military to pay for college only to have his ops pull up on a whole ass moose. If we're being honest here, that story just says more about the Soviet Union than it does about the moose. But back to the moose. Are overgrown all-terrain vehicles with legs, antlers, and audacity, and probably the reason Canadians are so polite. Their landlords are moose and they pay taxes to geese. You'd be humble too. Pretty sure this is the part of the video where I'm supposed to tell y'all to subscribe.
Yes, do it.
Have a nice day.
Guys, go subscribe to the Casual Geographic if you haven't already. Why do they have skin on their antler?
So moose drop their antlers every year but grow them back in the spring because they use them to flex for females. And at first the antlers grow inside this soft skin with tiny hairs called velvet. But eventually the moose has a surge of testosterone where they basically become 7-foot frat boys on spring break. That's when the velvet sheds and the bones of the antlers harden. The velvet stays on the antlers for about 3 to 4 months until the moose rubs up against trees and bushes to remove them. Which is why they look like they bundied somebody. As much of a hate crime as this looks like, it doesn't hurt the moose at all, and it's a lot like snakes shedding their skin. If anything, it's more like an annoying itch. Also, when a bull moose wants to pull a female, they use cologne just like you and me. Except their version involves digging a pit, peeing into the pit, and then rubbing and splashing a golden pool all over their antlers the R. Kelly way. Clearly they know what they're doing because smelling liquid sunshine causes the female moose to ovulate because nature's just weird like that.
But nature is weird like that, and a lot of them are like that. Gotta get to 8 minutes. 8 minutes for the ad revenue. I respect the heck out of that. Nice. Well, anyways, I hope you guys learned some things about moose. If you didn't, I don't know what to say, so I hope you learned some things about moose, aka my animal from my country. Like he's like my poster animal here in Canada. When people think of Canada, they think of moose, and I don't know why, but they are dominant here, so I guess so. But thank you guys for watching. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, comment down the moose emoji, and I will catch you guys all on the flip side. Goodbye, goodbye!